If you are self-employed, you need a business account. You cannot simply manage your self-employment through your personal account. And if you do, sooner or later, you will have issues with the tax office or with the banks. You will encounter problems. At least that's my experience. And that's why my strong recommendation is to get yourself a business account. And I am relatively well versed in the whole area of business accounts because I helped build Contest over several years. That means I spent several years of my life developing business accounts, co-developing. And therefore, I naturally have a bit of insight into the market and new providers, attractive providers. And I would, of course, like to introduce them to you here on this channel. And an exciting provider, which has been around for a while but decided this year to focus solely on business accounts, is Vivid Money. And this strategy shift, in particular, I find incredibly exciting, and at the same time, Vivid Money is winning several awards as the best business account. And that was, of course, reason enough for me to open an account myself, try it all out, and now record this video to introduce the account to you. Vivid Money belongs to the range of digital business accounts, just like N26, or also accounts like Finum, and many others as well. And in this video, I don't want to go into great detail about the fact that with the account, you can of course receive money, that you have your own IBAN, naturally a German IBAN, that you can send money via real-time transfer, and that you have the card, which you will of course also receive. It's a debit card that you can link with Apple Pay and Google Pay, and so on. I simply assume all these functions, which are considered by most people and institutions as essential and fundamental in nature, as basic. Most banks have these. In this video, we want to focus on the special features of Vivid Money. That means, how does Vivid Money actually differ from other providers? And to show you that, I'll just take you along on my screen. We are on the Vivid Money website, and here you immediately see prominently the announcement that it is the best business account of 2025. And here are some of the awards that Vivid Money has won. We will also take a look at the account itself in the app, but first let's go over a few features. And one feature that is super exciting for me is sub-accounts. I am a huge fan of maintaining a multi-account model. There are different concepts, but at least for taxes and health insurance, you should set aside money as a freelancer because these are usually the largest amounts, at least when you're just starting out. And this money should never be kept together with the money you use for your business in a bank account. Simply because the risk is too great that you'll be caught off guard by a tax payment and then you'll quickly find yourself in trouble. In the line of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of freelancers who are somehow surprised by a tax payment and then face serious existential problems. That's why you should always regularly set aside money for taxes. If you're not sure how much you should set aside, then take a look at the video I've linked in the top right, because I went through exactly that. Because honestly, setting aside a flat 50% isn't exactly accurate. And with Vivid Money, you get with the account actually up to 30 e-bonds. That means you have up to 30 accounts where you can distribute your money. This is not only enough for taxes and health insurance, but also for investments and for anything else you can think of. And another feature that I consider absolutely indispensable at banks is the integration with accounting software. I must say that I have to honestly say, when I look at other banks, there is in the extent of integration, meaning the sheer number of accounting programs you can link with your bank, better offers. However, you do your accounting, not with 50, 60 or 70 accounting programs, but usually with just one. And that's why you should definitely check before deciding on Vivid Money whether your accounting program is included. And I have to honestly say the most important ones are included. For example, we see Lexio Office, Dativ, Sevdesk, Fastbill, Sage, Buchhaltung and others. This means all the important accounting programs are included. And the surveys I've conducted here on this channel tell me that the accounting programs you use are covered. And with that, the point of integration with accounting programs is definitely fulfilled. If you don't use any accounting program at all, for example, if you still write your invoices with Excel and Word, then you should first reconsider that. Honestly, that will be relatively difficult for the future at the latest with the e-invoicing obligation. Then it will be over with Word and Excel. And that might be really annoying for you having to get a program now. For the 1, 2, 3, 4 invoices you might be writing, The nice thing about Vivid Money is if you really have such a small business where you don't have a large volume and you might consciously decide against an accounting program, then you can actually write your e-invoices directly with Vivid Money in the future. That means, yes, then it's over with Excel and Word, but you can definitely write invoices and simply with your bank, which you need anyway. And then there are two offers from Vivid Money that they often highlight in their marketing. One of them is the topic of interest rates. When you open an account with Vivid Money, you currently receive 4% interest. It should be noted that this is just a new customer bonus. This means you get these 4% at least according to the current conditions. Only for 2 months, and after that, depending on the package you have booked, you get about 2% interest. And that is a clear USP compared to other banks. I also use other banks for many of my sub-accounts, and for the business account, I usually get exactly 0% interest. This means that 4% or even 2% interest on the business account is clearly a unique selling point. And if you always have money sitting in your business account and are frustrated that the money isn't working for you, then you should definitely check out Vivid Money. The conditions will certainly change if the interest rate level rises or falls. But my experience over the past months and years is actually that Vivid Money is always right at the forefront with the interest rates. This means that Vivid Money, even if the conditions have changed, is very likely to still have the best interest offer. And a second topic that Vivid Money often highlights in its marketing is the topic of cashback. There are incredibly many different and ever-changing offers for cashback. And indeed, sometimes even extremely high. Cashback. I have to say personally that I have never chosen a bank based on cashback offers. Why? Because it's typically often just only 1% for approximately a very short period of about a month. And I always think to myself, chasing after those few cents isn't worth it. However, if I see here that I can get up to 10% cashback, then that can of course make a huge difference. If I suddenly run advertising campaigns and I know I can get up to 10% of my advertising budget back, then it's not just a small amount of change that you can get on the side, but I actually have a huge advantage from it. It's important to note here, of course, that Vivid Money doesn't have money to give away, and that's why the cashback is also limited. Specifically, it's limited to 150 euros per month. I have to say that's definitely an amount that is noticeable. And here we can see it as well, Facebook advertising up to 10% and Google advertising also up to 10%. That means this can actually make a difference in your sub-accounts if you simply receive 150 euros monthly from your bank as cashback and can thus reduce your operating expenses. Important note at this point because I get this question repeatedly. Cashback on operating expenses must always be recorded in the accounting. That means these 150 euros that you receive every month from Money are Steuerfit. This means, unfortunately, you cannot simply pocket the whole amount privately, as these are indeed taxable revenues, both subject to VAT and for profit determination. So, in the income surplus calculation, this increases the profit and thereby also increases the income tax and trade tax. It's actually quite logical because the expenses you incurred to earn this cashback were also deducted from taxes. And with that, let's take a look at the banking together. With Vivid Money, you naturally have the option to manage everything via the browser. This means you can log in normally, write your invoices, execute your transfers, and so on. In this video, however, I would like to take a look at the smartphone app. Simply because my personal usage behavior is such that I usually manage these banks on my smartphone. Yes, when I sit down once a week to make transfers and then somehow have 10 transfers ahead of me, I usually do that from the laptop. Everything else I usually do via smartphone. And that's why we're just going to take a look at the app together here. We are on the dashboard or the home screen of Vivid Money. At the very top, we see that I have opened this bank as Freitag Immobilien GmbH. And now I lead. Freitag Immobilien GmbH is my real estate company. That means I have to mention here, I don't use the bank as a freelancer or self-employed person, but as a GmbH. You can, of course, also open it as a self-employed person and freelancer, but also, and this is a difference from some other providers, actually as a GmbH business account. We see my account balance there, and now I have several options directly below. For example, to make a transfer by simply clicking on it, I can load money. By the way, this is a super exciting feature if you're just starting out, because you can not only transfer money to this account with a bank transfer, but also deposit with a credit card or even Apple Pay. And you have such a situation, for example, when you are founding a GmbH, because with a GmbH formation, it works like this. You go to the notary and complete all the founding documents. And then you first have to deposit the share capital into the business account. That means you have to open an account, and it's all about how quickly you can actually open such a bank account. By the way, this is also really quick with Vivid Money. It took 10 minutes, 15 minutes here, and we are 2 partners in this company. That means a bit more complexity than if you had opened it alone. And then it's about actually depositing this share capital there. And if you can do it with a credit card or Apple Pay, the money is there within seconds. That means you can stay seated at the notary and have 15 more minutes. The bank account opens with money deposited. Download a statement. No need to do it that way or waste notary's time. It's usually not very cost effective to pay the notary to watch you open a bank account, but it really goes fast, so you can complete it within minutes after the notary appointment. As a self-employed person, you don't need this form. You are not required to maintain a business account for deposits, pay and so on. But speed is still crucial. I often had to pay for something with my business account, like my business card, like entertainment expenses at a restaurant, and then the money wasn't enough in the business account. But what you should never do in such a situation is pay with your personal account, because then you suddenly have a business transaction on your personal account. What you should do instead is transfer money from your personal account to your business account and then pay with the business account. But this must be done within seconds. And with Vivid Money, this is also possible. This means you can get the money into the business account quickly. Then you have various intermediate accounts or the sub-accounts that you set up. For example, I could decide to have everything in the main account. But if I want to take advantage of the interest benefit, then I can simply transfer 10,000 euros to my bank account. And we see that it has now been transferred. And now I see here, in the overview, it just switched from my main account to my bank account. And now I get 4% interest on these 10,000 euros. Additionally, I could now exchange it into other currencies. Honestly, for me personally, it's not necessary. That's why I personally don't use the function. But if it's relevant for you, then you see that. The whole thing is also possible here. I get an overview of my accounts and sub-accounts. There is a crypto sub-account. I will exclude this topic. If interested in crypto and taxes, comment below. And then I will go into, it's just important to me that you inform yourself about where these 7% that you would get here come from and whether you are willing to take the corresponding risk. Then you see here, analyses, meaning what is your cash flow status, meaning your account balance, how has it developed, for example, this week, this month. You can see I have just opened this bank account, so to speak, with the initial capital for this GmbH. I can add the cards here at the bottom, meaning I can now add my debit card here. By the way, I can also invite my team members. I mentioned that I do not have this company alone. This means I can actually work in here with several people and employees and can invite my team members who can then, for example, pay their travel expenses via Vivid Money and don't have to create their own travel expense reports. They simply receive a card with their own rights and so on. And now I can invite the cards and the team members respectively. Below I also see an overview of my transactions and can then, for example, add invoices to the individual transactions. This means what exactly did I pay for, who made the transaction. This is especially interesting when employees pay travel expenses via Vivid Money and the taxi receipt or train ticket is missing. And then you know directly how to address it, who still needs to submit their travel expense documents. Additionally, I can make payments, which I see here in the middle, either by simply entering an IBAN or by simply taking a photo of the invoice. And then it basically reads the invoice information itself, meaning I can take the photo, I can upload it from my files or my photos. And then it reads the IBAN, the recipient, the amount, and so on. And it basically fills out the transfer for you. In the tests I've done so far, it works pretty well, I must say. Or I can transfer money between my own accounts. Or plan the whole thing in advance. So certain transfers, like salary payments, which of course always have to go out at the end of the month. And then we come to the whole area of cashback. I've already mentioned that Vivid Money simply has an extensive cashback system. And now for the month of April, for example, I can consider which cashback programs do I want to take advantage of. I see here, so far I haven't taken advantage of anything yet. And when I click on select, I have a long list of what kind of cashback I would like to have here. I can choose up to 6 categories. That means if I now consider that this month I am buying quite a lot on Amazon, I also know that I definitely always book software applications, but I also definitely want to book advertising. That means Facebook and Google advertising. And then I confirm everything, and then I can actually start with paying with my Vivid Money card and then collect the cashback accordingly. And then it gets paid out to me. And with that, we come to an important question, namely, what does the whole thing cost? And the good news is you can actually start for free. That means Vivid Money actually has a free business account. This free business account actually also has functions. Sometimes providers do it in such a way that they create a theoretically free bank. But there are additional fees here and there, hidden costs and so on, so it's never really free. However, you can write €0 in big letters at the top of the price table. That's not the case with Vivid Money. With this free business account, you can actually work. That means it is a fully serious business account. And if you eventually grow and become a large sub-account, there are indeed ways to leave a lot of money with Vivid. For example, here as sub-accounts, you can actually also in the Enterprise Plus account spend €249 per month for your banking, but then you also have, for example, 100 team members. Regarding the question of how on earth you now undertake in your sub-accounts. Find 100 providers who all need contest as well. We'll deal with that topic at another time, perhaps in a different video. For now, it's about the accounts that are relevant for freelancers. And there are mainly two. Firstly, there is the standard account, which is free, meaning no account management fees. And then there's the Prime account, which costs €7.90 if you pay annually. And if you pay monthly, then it's €9.90. And indeed, as I already mentioned, you can actually use this free account as well. So you have 12 sub-accounts, and initially, as a new customer, you get 4% interest. And then, and this is the small downside, after 2 months, you actually have an interest rate of 0.5%. This is still more than most other business accounts offer. However, it is significantly less than the 2.5% that you would get in the Prime account. Additionally, the cashback is capped at 5%. You would get 10% in the Prime account. And then, of course, there are further limitations. Take a look at them at your leisure. You can find the link to Vivid Money also below in the video description. My personal experience is actually not only my own, but also with clients that you can indeed work well with this €0, meaning this free business account, when you have a small, manageable self-employment. And if that is not enough for you, then you can also opt for Prime, paying, as mentioned, €7.90 or €9.90 per month. You then have a 2.5% interest rate permanently on the balance in your business account, or we looked into it, if you then move the money to this interest-bearing account and have cashback up to 10%. You need to calculate this for yourself once. When is it worth it? However, you can actually test this Prime account for 2 months for free. That means if you say Vivid Money actually looks quite interesting, you need a bank anyway, or what I can understand is this 10% cashback for advertising expenses, which is really fascinating, then you can simply try it out for 2 months. And if you then realize, well, you get €100 cashback every month, then honestly, the €7.90 per month, yes, are somehow justified. Just test the whole thing for 2 months. And if you then realize Prime isn't worth it, you can still switch to the standard account and then you won't pay any account management fees anymore. And to the question, where does Vivid Money actually stand? Compared to other banks, one really has to say that Vivid Money is quite affordable in comparison. So these €7.90 or €9.90 if you pay monthly, they are rather on the lower end of the scale in comparison. And if you also consider that you get interest and cashback here, which of course depends on how high your account balance is or how intensively you use the card, the whole thing is really quite a bargain. So the big advantage of Vivid Money is indeed the price-performance ratio if your account usage behavior is accordingly. And with that, we come to the conclusion and the pros and cons. And with the advantages, I have to repeat myself directly. The price-performance ratio is simply unbeatable if you use the bank as Vivid Money incentivizes. I mean, then you get money from your bank every month. Through the cashback, which for me is a second major advantage. Such cashback offers are not available with any other business account in Germany. You have to say it like that. And the interest, and this interest on a business account is something I don't know from any other provider. These many sub-accounts are another advantage for me. That is, for me, I have to honestly say, almost essential. Other providers have this now too, but I still have to mention it here because with traditional banks, sub-accounts actually cost extra money. And with Vivid Money, they are simply included. And I actually like the speed. So depositing with Apple Pay, with credit card, real-time transfer. Best regards to other supposedly digital banks like DKB. They still can't manage to offer real-time transfers. That should actually be the standard. But unfortunately, it still isn't. And Vivid Money, of course, offers real-time transfers like all the other deposit options I mentioned. That I can now also invite my employees there, and we can simply use the same business account with several colleagues. And I can actually search for who has submitted their respective travel expenses, and we don't have to handle it in the traditional way of submitting travel expenses. Honestly, that's an additional plus point for me. And with that, we come to the disadvantages. And the disadvantages are quite obvious at first glance. Vivid Money does not have its own branch network, like all these online digital business accounts, but because it doesn't have a branch network, you have no way to go in and speak with someone in person. Personally, I don't find this incredibly important, but for some people it is important because it actually makes handling cash difficult to impossible. If you have a cash-intensive business, meaning you have cash revenues and naturally want to deposit these cash revenues into your business account, then Vivid is simply not the right business account for you. Then you need a bank where you can ideally handle this on-site. And at this point, you're out. And with that, we come to a point that absolutely must be mentioned among the disadvantages. And that is the German deposit insurance. And indeed, if you have a very classic German contest, there is German deposit insurance. This means for funds up to 100,000 euros. The state essentially guarantees your bank, simply put. So for example, if you have 80,000 euros in your business account at the Sparkasse and the Sparkasse goes under and declares bankruptcy, becoming insolvent, then the German state actually steps in and gives you back your 80,000 euros contest. And you don't have this 100,000 euros protection with Vivid Money. So with Vivid Money, you have a German IBAN, but you don't have this classic German deposit insurance. With Vivid Money, your money is secured in a different way, but by default only up to 20,000 euros. And the money that earns interest is invested in a money market fund, which is your special asset, and so on. Be sure to check out the link that I have linked for you below in the video description. And perhaps for context, in most cases, this is not a problem at all, because honestly, how many of us regularly have more than 20,000 euros in our business account and then don't just transfer the money to their personal account and invest it elsewhere? That means most business accounts don't even exceed these 20,000 euros. And even then, it doesn't mean at all that your money is somehow acutely at risk or being gambled away. Not at all. Therefore, your money is definitely safe there. However, you need to know that this protection, which is standard for German accounts, is regulated differently with Vivid Money. And for that, I refer to the source below in the video description. For me personally, this honestly isn't an issue in daily dealings. However, it is a topic you should be aware of. Thus, we come to my final conclusion. I have been intensively dealing with Vivid Money for a few days now, but I have actually known the bank for a few years as a market companion. During my time with accounts, we naturally always looked at what the others were doing, and I actually know it from a handful of clients who use Vivid Money, where we then provide tax support. That means I have different perspectives, viewpoints on it. And with Vivid Money, I've always had the feeling over the past few years that they were a bit on a quest, constantly experimenting. And I find this focus in their strategy on business accounts, which they have only had since 2025, fantastic. And you can tell from the product that freelancers and sub-accounts are now at the forefront. Honestly, that was my biggest criticism in the past, that it was essentially a personal account. And all these business functions were running somewhat in parallel. And this fact is currently leading me to open an account with Vivid Money for 2 companies I'm involved in, and I'm actually gradually moving over to use this account more intensively. And if you have any questions about this, about Vivid Money, business accounts in general and so on, feel free to leave me a comment or perhaps share your experience in the comments below. I look forward to reading from you. And if you say, wow, Vivid Money looks interesting, then click on the first link in the video description below and just check it out for yourself. Or you can just click right here. And if you say, no, Shikat, I don't need Vivid Money, I have a business account, you can watch another video here, this or that one.